Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we're working on launching this initial space station component. And we actually, surprisingly, made it into orbit last episode. Now, I've made a few alterations to this. We had to pull this back because we forgot to have a gyroscope up here, or solar panels, which are, useful things. So we pulled it back and, well, I wouldn't say forgot exactly. I remembered to do it, but that was a test flight that just went way better than expected. So we're going to relaunch this. This is going to be from the DSC launch pad. And we know that we need to move this over to 60 degrees. So we're going to move this to 60 degrees east. There we go. And we're going to set the pitch to about 70 degrees for right now. Now, that's a little bit awkward with the lightning rods here. So I'm sure it'll be fine. It was fine last time. We've also reduced the amount of fuel in this stage. Keep in mind, we're going to have to re-enter our booster stage. So we need to have enough fuel for that. But we'll see what that ends up looking like. So let's lift this guy right on off here. And we're going to head on out of here. So the SRBs are going to burn out in the eventual times, but I want to hold this attitude and punch our inclination up, or rather not our inclination, punch our apoapsis up quite a lot higher than it was going to be previously. Because we know we have low thrust to weight up here. We have increased our thrust to weight by dropping the fuel amount. Question then is delta V, right? So that'll be interesting. Oh, that's interesting. We've got a docking section here now. That's good to note. We're also at 96% battery already, so we clearly don't have an alternator on here. That's okay. That's what the solar panels are for. Okay, so our apoapsis is currently about 20 kilometers, which is fine. I'm really not too concerned about that. I'm going to hold this attitude. We are definitely going to hold it until these are burned out, and then we'll evaluate from there. Also want to go into orbital mode here. Perfect. And we can see that our current inclination is about 22 degrees. So that's looking better as well already. Okay, so these SRBs, they've still got another 15%. We're already up in space here. So I kind of want to pitch us down to maybe around 30 degrees at this point, and then hold here until our SRBs burn out, which will eventually happen. But at this point, we're primarily getting the horizontal speed. Lateral speed is what this game calls it. So that looks good. We're going to ditch these side tanks. There we go. And now I want to move us directly over to a 0 degree pitch, getting purely lateral speed. We're definitely projecting this a lot further. I do want to activate our solar panels at this point. So that looks good. And yeah, we can see here, we went up to 306 kilometers. That's slightly unfortunate. These engines do not immediately turn on and off. So that is noted. We should certainly be in a bit of a coast period here. Our orbital velocity is not tremendously high, and the question is, how long of a coast period should we be in? We've got 563 meters per second here. If we burn at the apoapsis, how much is it going to take us to get this into orbit? About 1 kilometer per second. Okay. The concern here is our thrust to weight is going to go down substantially when we switch to this stage. I don't know how substantially. Also, our inclination is not perfect, but that's okay. We can adjust that. We're very, very close to the correct inclination, and that is good enough. So for the moment, I do want to just coast here, I think. And let's coast to about here. And then I'm thinking about doing a burn here with 563 meters per second, which is intended to be a little bit like this. where we just toss in a little bit of radial here, right? This is too much DV at this point. So we know that we have 563, right? So I want to have this be out this way a little bit. Yeah, it should be about like this. Okay, so that's not going to be that perfect, right? I definitely want to jettison our fairing here. Oh, that hopefully destroyed our solar panels. Good to know. Luckily, we have full battery right now. Okay, so that destroyed our solar panels. That is reasonably fine. We are going to arrive here in 18 seconds. I want to automatically do this burn. Okay, commence the burn. So this is going to burn out the remainder of this, and we'll be able to turn much more easily, but destroying those solar panels was not ideal. That just means we need to move them a little bit down, which I'm not too concerned about. Okay, we're at 299 kilometers, so I want to move us to prograde. Burn out anything else we've got. There we go. And cut the engine and jettison that. Okay, so now we're up here. We're going to turn much more easily. And at the apoapsis, I want to try to circularize this. So node is not locked. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Okay, so we need to be locked to this burn and be executing it like right now. It's going to be a 7-minute burn. This is 0.17 thrust to weight. Our ending thrust to weight, I don't know what that's going to be. But yeah, this is going to be a spicy one. So we definitely want to be burning that like right now. And we're going to see how that goes. Let's move this forward. Okay. So our current impact point is going to be like out over here, right? That's understood. So we're about 10% of the way through the burn. We'll be arriving in about 30 seconds, but we are late on this burn. This stage is still quite underpowered for this. Does this have a solar panel built into it? It does. Fascinating. So we didn't actually need the solar panel, just the gyroscope. Okay, that's fine. So we're going to keep burning out over here, but we're going to have to be, well, yeah, you can see here the maneuver is starting to pitch us up to compensate for being late on that burn. So this is actually doing exactly what I expected to do and what I was going to manually do if we didn't see it doing that. But we do see it doing that, so that seems ideal. We're going to continue to work on burning this, and we just need to get ourselves into an orbit, and then we can come around, do an inclination change, and do a second pass on this burn. That's the overall idea here. I do not necessarily want to do a full burn here to get us into this circularized orbit. This is just a temporary stopgap burn. So that seems fine. An inclination change will be necessary, and that'll be the next step after we get into orbit here. But yeah, our thrust to weight is like double what it was previously, which is remarkable. And we should make it into orbit with no real problem here, but we will have to do some vertical burn to counteract this vertical speed. So that will be a bit of a problem, and we're not going to get into our target orbit on the immediate go here, which is not surprising. So this all looks fine. We're at minus 30 kilometers right now on our periapsis, so we are just about to get up into orbit here. We just want to get this up over 80 kilometers, so it's crossing 0 now. Excellent. And yeah, our apoapsis has gone up a little bit. We're going to tune that down as well. Okay. So we just need to bring this up to about 80. Like 81 kilometers is what we're targeting here. There we go. Cool. So we're going to get rid of that maneuver node. And at this point, I want to look at our not target descending node. I want to look at our ascending and descending node. So it's going to be the descending node here. Okay. So I want to change our inclination to be precisely 30 degrees. That's the next step here. So that overshot it a bit. I'm going to turn down the sensitivity, and we're just going to do this. Cool. Precisely 30 degrees like that. So that's 109 meters per second. That should be fine. It's an 85-second burn. Yeah, we need to unpause it to begin warp. Understood. We're going to auto-execute that burn, and that will get us into our target 30-degree inclination. So that is excellent. We can warp through this burn a little bit. It'll take some time. Our thrust to weight is still tremendously low, and that's expected. Although, I would think that the quad engines on here would be a little higher thrust to weight than this, but apparently not. It's fine. The vacuum engines in this game are very low thrust. Just takes some getting used to. Cool, so we've got about 20 seconds left in this burn. We can see we are technically within our desired inclination. I'm going to drop out of warp since we've got about 10 seconds left in that burn. And that puts us at 29.9. Exactly 30. I like it. So now our apoapsis is slightly too high. So I want to come to the periapsis, and we're not going to want to drop this very much. Only down to about there. 3.16 meters per second. Kilometers per second. No. Okay, so we're going to execute that burn. It will be a very short burn. Perfect. So that looks good. Now the only thing that we need to do now is head to the apoapsis and do our second pass on raising this up, which will be much easier to do now that we're properly in orbit, and also now that we have we don't have a stage change in the middle of it, right? So that made things very awkward, no doubt about it. But 121 meters per second, not bad. Let's head around and get that completed. Excellent. So that's going to be about a 1.5-minute burn time. Like I said, very, very low thrust here. But we do have a high specific impulse of 291 seconds. So that is not too bad. I mean, we've still got 2 kilometers per second in this thing. Okay, so we are 45 seconds away from being in our desired orbit. And then we're going to need to jettison the radix module. And then we're going to need to deorbit this booster, is what it said. So 10 seconds left here. Let's drop out of warp. 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay, so 300 by 300 at an inclination of 30 degrees looks perfect. So now we need to detach the radix module. So this is the radix module deployer here. Let's go ahead and activate that. Now we need to deorbit our stage by bringing it back into the atmosphere. Okay, so I want to flip this around to retrograde. We don't necessarily want to burn this right away. We're apparently just going to shove it a bit there. I guess that's fine. The radix module, we could... Yeah, let's just get this locked to prograde for now. That'll be fine. And I don't... Why are you locking to prograde? Lock to retrograde, please. Thank you. Okay. I don't want to burn while this is going to get hit by the exhaust, but I don't think it will now. Let's just do a very small pulse here to get ourselves a little bit of distance. Okay. And let's deorbit this. We should be good now. So we don't really care where it deorbits. It's going to burn up. We just need to decelerate this a lot. Looks like we're going to be dropping in the ocean. Sure. That is probably ideal. So we've got to bring this down to below 80 kilometers. And then at that point, it should just burn up. And that's exactly what we want. We don't want to recover this. Cool. So we're going to be dropping below orbital velocity fairly soon. We are, of course, going to pick up a lot of speed as we come in. So about 30 kilometers to go. Now about 10. Okay, so we are now within the atmosphere, in theory. Well, we're not within the atmosphere, but our position is within the atmosphere. So apparently that is good enough. So we get 40 million for that. and we can end that flight. The launch cost was 21.8 million, so that was quite profitable. That looks good. And we can't recover this craft. We're just going to destroy it. It's going to burn up in the atmosphere. So that is absolutely fine. Cool. So that gets us our station out over here. And we can probably rename that, but let's see what else we've got here. So Spaceport Esperanza here, and this is going to be launching with the expansion module, approach the Spaceport Esperanza, dock to the Radix module, and deorbit our stage by bringing it back into the atmosphere. Okay, so let's see how heavy the expansion module is. So we can see that our current mass is 315 tons, right? So if we were to drop this guy out of here. Okay, looks like that is 8 tons. So now the question is, how heavy is the expansion module? It does not appear to be here. Because I didn't accept this. Okay. There we go. So, with that accepted, now we can put the expansion module in this. 38.1 tons? That is incredibly expensive. Or rather, incredibly heavy. So that is very, very, very heavy. To the point where this ain't gonna cut it. This is way, way heavier. It's also wider. You can see it sticks out through our fairing. We could reduce the size of the fairing in terms of its height down to about here. But the width of the fairing is going to have to go up quite a lot more, to around 3 meters, probably? Something like that. So, these guys here, they are not going to cut it. We definitely need more thrust here. So we can definitely work on that. We could increase the nozzle throat size, and that's probably not a bad idea, to be honest. It'll reduce our overall efficiency, but to be honest, I think that's okay. So this would bring us from 0.05 to 0.18. This would bring us back up to about the same efficiency we had before in terms of thrust to weight, but the ISP does drop by a lot. So we do want to have the nozzle length like this. It is going to probably still be pressure fed. The real question here is, what else can we do to boost up the power levels of these engines? Because we're going to need it. We're definitely going to need it. I'm not concerned about the first stage. I think the first stage is still going to perform quite well. This is going to bring us up to roughly, well, this delta V is a lot lower than it was. No doubt about that. I think we're going to have to... So these are currently Spirit engines, right? Yeah, these are currently Spirit engines. So we might have to upgrade these to Mage engines. I'm just going to stick that off to the side for right now. Mage engines are a lot more expensive. How much are we getting paid for this? 200 million. Okay, we have a lot bigger of a budget. So that seems reasonably fine. We're going to have 4 Mage engines here. And I do want these still to be pressure fed, ideally. But honestly, I think we might have to go with gas generators. So in that case, we want to increase the nozzle length here. And we want to decrease the nozzle throat size. This is much better thrust to weight. We might not want to have 4 of these. We might want to only have about 2 of them, I'm thinking right now. So it'd be something kind of like this, but that gets very, very wide. If we increase the throat size, but decrease the nozzle length, I mean, that does cut our delta V a lot. I'm going to want to toss in some additional fuel here again. I want this to be about probably 5 meters in length, thereabouts. And then these engines can be, you know, something kind of like that in terms of their placement. So this is a lot of thrust to weight that we have right now, and we could drop down the throat size as long as we're at around... 1 thrust to weight or so, this is probably reasonably fine. So I'm thinking maybe around 65% for the nozzle throat size. Okay, so now the problem, of course, is this interstage, which is going to have to be increased in size a little bit. So we would need to do something kind of like that. And then that would mean this fuel tank should also be increased in size a little bit to be like a radius of like 2.2 meters or so. And we could do the same down below. That'll give us a little bit more runtime. I want this to be exact. We should probably set our grid size to be like 0.05. Okay. Well, that's a little awkward. Okay, so we're going to have to turn this down and get this precisely where we want to be. I've adjusted my mouse DPI here to try to get that a little bit more precise. It really doesn't want to sit at 2.2. Let's see if we can maybe zoom in on it a little bit. Maybe that would help. Yeah, that helps. Okay, cool. So now we can set the grid size back to 0.05, and this up here should be 2.2. Yep. I want to reattach these guys here. So where is the interstage? There it is. So we're going to need to take that off, and I want to move that a bit higher up. The detachment point on it was a little awkward, so we'll do something like that. And then I'm going to move this down to be about right there. Now, the question is, what is this stage 1 thrust to weight? That's a little on the low side. So, to that end, increasing the nozzle size increases our thrust to weight in vacuum. I want it to be at sea level here, specifically. So it looks like 1.24 is the best thrust to weight that we've got here. Okay. We could definitely ramp up the side engines here. That is definitely a thing that we could do. So to that end, I would very much like to do that. This is a low thrust to weight for lifting off. We can get rid of these engines. And then these guys here are going to be a little bit better. This is going to be quite a lot heavier. No doubt about that. And I don't think the angle here is correct, is it? Hang on. Let's put it at 90 degrees. That's going to be a little bit better. And I do want to move these solar panels down to be about there so that they don't get destroyed. That'll be for the best. And then as far as these mage engines go, I'm going to increase the size of them just a bit until they are basically the same size as these. Now, do we have a height issue here? I don't think we should. Let's see, checklist. Missing a monoprop source? What's missing a monoprop source? Oh, it's the expansion module. Okay, we should probably give the expansion module a monoprop source. So I'm going to put in a small fuel tank up here. And we're going to tune that down to be about, I don't know, maybe like 1 meter, something like that. And then the fuel is going to be monoprop. Okay, so now do we have a monoprop source? Yeah, the fairing is not connected, obviously. Okay, so that seems fine. We've got a little bit of monoprop in here. How much weight is that monoprop, I wonder? Propellant mass, 355 tons, but that's in stage 1. I want specifically the propellant mass in this fuel tank, which is 5.52 tons. I think that's way more than we need. Let's bring this down to maybe like half a meter. That's still 2 tons of monoprop. That's probably more than enough. Okay, so our stage 1, actually we should check our staging. Stage 1 is these 4 mage engines and the 2 Ifrit solid boosters. That looks good. That is 1.45, so I wouldn't mind tuning up these side boosters a little bit. I feel like that's probably a good thing to do. So to that end, We could certainly increase the size of them up a bit and have that be... This is a thrust to weight of about 2, which seems reasonable. We can increase the size of this as well. There we go. Yeah, that's about 2. So that looks good. I'm happy with that thrust to weight there. Now, this thrust to weight up here is a thrust to weight starting of 0.31. It's still not great, is it? And it's only 420 meters per second of delta V. Is that true? That is not much DV. Okay. So maybe we should ditch these engines and put back Spirit engines and just continue working with Spirit engines. That is a potential option. Or we could try to unlock a new engine type. That may be a good thing to do as well. That's probably what we need, but we don't have many tech points right now. So I don't think that's an option. Okay, we just got to make this work. So Spirit engines or Gnome engines are potential possibilities here. I'm going to go with Spirit engines, and we're definitely going to need to increase the size of this a lot. So that's 250% size right there. It's currently a monoprop engine, and I want this to be a liquid pressure-fed engine. So that puts us at a thrust to weight of 0 with a not applicable ISP. That's Carolox. That's monoprop. Why is this not showing up as being anything? Okay, that's weird. Well, we can definitely look into that. We can increase the thrust here. I guess it just wasn't actually pushing it at all. Okay. Well, let's put this at about 100%. And let's get this in some form of radial symmetry. We might even want to do X5 or X6 for this. This is a big mass here. So we could even duplicate this and have an extra one here in the center. So even that is showing at 0. I don't know that that's actually true. Let's put this together, and I'm going to save this craft here as the space station launcher. And now I want to take this back off, and oh, this is at 0 altitude. That's a big part of the problem. Okay, so that is fine. Now I want to check in on Bell versus Cone. Okay, we are better off being on Bell. As far as the throat size goes, we can crank this up a bit. This is showing us 1.26 kilometers per second right now, and this guy we'd want to do basically the same thing. So 0.26 thrust to weight is not terrible. I'm a little concerned about getting this into orbit with this heavy of a payload. We have cranked up the power of this stage a little bit, but I'm not convinced, to be honest. Okay, I want to detach this interstage. The interstage is currently too long. So we can do something more like that. That'll save us a little bit of mass. Actually, 2.16, a fair amount of mass. And this is a little ridiculous at this point, but we clearly need to unlock new engine types. At any rate, we can try this next episode and see how it goes. I'm a little concerned about getting this much mass into orbit, but I think it'll work. I think. We'll see. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Atala, Andy Bagar, Ali Lee, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Hiro Marutsu, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.